In answer to all the questions I've had from worried mortgage payers about what they should do and how they're going to get through this crisis, from worried home movers who need advice on whether they should move or not, first-time buyers who don't know whether they should enter the market or not, I decided to answer all of the questions in a video. Unfortunately, it's not the best of news, but even though some of it you may know already, I am responding to the questions that I've been asked. Unfortunately, I believe that we are now in a worse situation than 2008. In 2008, in the crisis, the government was able to take drastic action with interest rates. They dropped them down to 0.5% because inflation was very low and bank liquidity was almost at zero. They're unable to do that this time, so now we have high inflation and rising, and high interest rates and rising. It is clear that the markets are not happy about the mini budget. The IMF have intervened and criticised the government, and that's the first time they have ever done that to a G7 country. It appears that confidence in the fiscal policy of this government is shattered. I don't know how it's going to be restored. To be honest, to be giving tax cuts to the super rich in the current climate, no matter what the justification for it, it's reckless, especially if those tax cuts are unfunded, borrowed. It does not make sense. It is a gamble. And agree or disagree, back in the early 80s, when Margaret Thatcher pursued a road of cutting taxes, before she did that, she cut expenditure. Yes, she cut it to the bone and it was a terrible time. But when she did offer tax cuts, or when Nigel Lawson rather offered tax cuts, they were justified. They had the money to do so. Now we have a Prime Minister who's on a mission, maybe got it something to prove, with a cabinet of people with no ministerial experience, with the exception of Rees-Mogg, who have rolled the dice with our entire economy. If there were going to be any tax cuts, and there should have been some, they should have been at the bottom. And the only tax cuts that should have been made now was to raise the threshold for income tax, because it is immoral that people on minimum wage should be paying tax on money they would otherwise need for food or energy, as it's now going to be, and to pay their mortgage payments or rent. That is where it should have been, and that would have stimulated the economy, because those people at the very bottom, the ones who are struggling the most with that influx of money, would go straight out to the shops to buy food, to buy school uniforms, etc., etc., and that would kickstart the economy. The bottom 20% are the start of the economic food chain, really, and yet they're the ones that are neglected the most. That's another matter. And where corporations are concerned, I don't think that they should have offered a tax cut to just existing corporations, but that did not prevent them from offering fantastic tax incentives to new companies, especially if those new companies were going to move into poorer areas. Ireland reduced their corporate tax to 13.5%, which is below what was agreed as the 15% minimum. And over the last 3 years, Google has moved there. Things have changed entirely. There's absolutely no reason that this government could have not done the same thing to encourage more overseas companies to come and given them a tax incentive for 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 years to actually bring in new money, but only for new money, not to give away money to the super rich. Because whereas many of you would use a tax cut for your daily necessities, the very wealthy are using that money for new Range Rovers and villas in the sun. And how do I know this? Because that's what we sell, and we have over 3,000 of them. And on Sunday night, or was it Saturday? Saturday night, following the mini budget, our website was so busy at 8:15 it crashed. That says it all. But anyway, now this is my opinion, but if you are buying a new build home now, I would withdraw immediately. If you are buying at 85% loan to value or higher, consider your position carefully. What if we do continue on the present trajectory? Where will house prices be, and how will you cope in a year's time if your interest payments are too high but you are in negative equity and you cannot move? Many people who have bought new builds because they are overpriced are in negative equity already, especially the ones who bought with minimal deposit. Do not buy now with a 2-year fixed mortgage, only a 5-year fixed minimum, because if you buy now, you could find your current deal ending in 2 years' time. Interest rates could be even higher then. Nobody knows where we'll be. We might be past it, we might not. But if you are going to put your neck on the line now, you need the security to budget for 5 years. If you have a decision in principle, I wouldn't get your hopes up, because the lenders will probably not honour it. As you're aware, over 1,000 mortgage products have been withdrawn just in the last day or so, and lenders will not honour that decision in principle. It will either be downvalued, or more than likely be downvalued by the valuer. They are under no obligation to honour a decision in principle, only an actual mortgage offer. And the average mortgage offer is valid for 3 months. I have heard people say 6 months, but in my experience it's 3 months. More than half of existing sales are going to fall down. I will cover that a little bit more in a minute. Now, if you are determined to buy now, then I would look at offering 25% below the asking price. That's drastic, but I believe that if you want to cover yourselves, that is where you should be, and do not listen to anybody. When property falls, it falls immediately. Following what's happened, the value of property has already fallen. You may not see it when you search the portals. That is because even though the value of property has fallen, it is the time it takes for acceptance through the market by the sellers that takes the time. But the fall is normally immediate. And therefore, ignore the statistics. They are not based on what's happening today. They are based on figures compiled from days, weeks and months ago. So for some of you, after you've done your sums, then you may be facing a very difficult decision: fight or flight. If you decide to sell now, be realistic and be drastic with your asking price. You may feel that you are losing money, but by taking a significant cut now, you may sell at a price that may be more than what your property will be worth 12 months from now, and you will at least have got yourself out of trouble. That's only if that's your last option. If you hesitate in reducing your price, you may be chasing the fall, meaning that your asking price, although you are reducing it bit by bit incrementally, you are continually higher than where the property has already fallen, meaning that you're not getting a sale because you're constantly above where it should be. So if you are going to take a cut, if you have made the decision that you do have to sell, you have no other option, then you must be realistic on price, because there are people out there who will buy at the right price. Most importantly, use a good agent to sell your property. Ignore the double glazing salesman of the property industry. They're all over social media. The best agents market their properties and look after their clients. They are not posting videos of themselves all over social media, showing you their pie charts, telling you what they've sold, telling you how wonderful they are, and showing you their glamorous lifestyle. Therefore, you may find the best agent quietly working in an office somewhere in your town centre, and they don't need all of the flannel. Their properties are out there, they market their properties, but they don't need to market themselves. Beware of agents' tricks. In the meantime, if you do decide to sell, do not sign a sole selling rights agreement. I will repeat that. Do not sign a sole selling rights agreement, especially if you are in need to sell. Once you have signed a sole selling rights agreement, any buyer that comes along for your house for weeks or months or however long you sign for cannot buy your house without that agent extorting their fee out of you, even though they had nothing to do with the sale. Do not sign a sole selling rights agreement. You may want or need a few weeks into your agreement to take a cash offer from whoever, a friend, a family, a corporation that buys property below market value. You won't be able to sell to them without paying that agent. The best agents work on their aptitude, on their skills, on their efforts to look after their clients, not by holding them to ransom. And do not pay any upfront fees either. Next, take the estate agent challenge. This, I really urge you to do this. If you have time, pop into your local town centre, if you still have one. Unfortunately, I don't think we do. And pop into an estate agent and just have a conversation that you're thinking to start looking for a property, and ask them, how's the market? What's happening? I guarantee you that 99% of them will tell you it's been very busy. We've agreed lots of sales in the last week after the stamp duty holiday. There's pent up demand and blah, blah, blah. Of course they've agreed lots of sales. Every single offer put forward in the last 2 weeks will have been accepted. That is sellers thinking, take the money, take the money. But trust me, most of those sales will fall down. This does remind me of one of my favourite and most colourful politicians, even though I didn't agree with him most of the time, and that's Tony Benn. But his most famous quote, there are 3 types of lies. Lies, damned lies, and statistics. Remember that when you're dealing with estate agents, because even now there are very few estate agents out there who will tell you what I am telling you, and will give you step out on the ledge and say what I'm going to say at the end of this video. If you've bought in the last 4 or 5 years at 85% loan to value or more, you may well be in negative equity within 12 months, if not already. Many of those who have bought new build with a minimal deposit are probably already in negative equity. So you have to plan around that, because if you need to sell, you may not be able to, because you will owe more than your property is worth. Therefore, you do have to take drastic action with your finances. Only you know what's best for yourselves. There are 2.2 million variable mortgages out there which have already been infected and are vulnerable to every single change, and 1.8 fixed mortgages due to end over the next year, and those people need to make decisions, and quickly. On a lighter note, lenders do not want to repossess. So what can you do? If you feel that the mortgage payment at the end of your fixed deal, or even where it stands already, is going to be too much, step 1, contact your lender immediately and ask to go off a repayment mortgage and just pay interest only. That will take a big chunk off of your mortgage. It doesn't matter if you don't pay off anything off your mortgage over the next 2 or 3 years. What matters is that you can pay the interest and keep your home. So attempt that, because despite common opinion, lenders do not want to repossess. So they will work with you. The key is speak to them well in advance, so you know where you stand, and you can do whatever you can to make life easier for yourselves. Consider renting out a spare room. Most of you will already know, but for those of you who don't, you are allowed £7,500 per year tax-free under the rent a room scheme. That's definitely worth considering, because for the vast majority, 1 room rented out will actually cover the extra just about that you're probably facing if things go the way that it appears. And finally, I am prepared to step out on the parapet and say, in my opinion, based on the current trajectory, property will fall between 30 to 35% within a year from now. And it has already fallen. In London in particular, it has fallen by 10.4% in the last 2 months. Things can change. The Bank of England may salvage things. They have stepped in today buying bonds, but that has had the opposite effect because it's basically tangible evidence that the government has messed up and the confidence in our government and our pound has collapsed. And I would not rule out a Black Wednesday 2 at any time. That's a real and present danger. Let's hope it doesn't happen. I'd like to wish you all well. If you have any questions on anything that I've covered, please feel free to get in touch with me, and then in my next videos I will then move on to those of you who are preparing yourselves to buy when the market bottoms out, whenever that may be. It does take a long time. From 2008 it didn't really bottom out until 2013. In the previous time, from 1989, it didn't really bottom out until 1993. So we have a long and bumpy road ahead of us. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.